Well, good evening out there, everybody, all across internet land and out there in the Great Plains and all you everywhere you may be, from Washington down to Walla Walla, from Maine to Moscato, or wherever you may be in the United States of America, or the fruited plain, as Rush used to call it. How you doing? I'm Brian Trippett. I am the Front Porch Conservative, and welcome to Chattin On The Porch, a live stream that under normal circumstances, or at least up until now, has always had a guest. Well, tonight we are initiating the solo show. My name is Brian Trippett. I'm known in social media as the Front Porch Conservative. We are on YouTube. We are on Twitter. We are on Rumble. So if you haven't done it yet, send out a tweet, send out a Gettr, send out a Gab, send out a Truth Social, wherever you may be out there in social media. Tell your friends, get their butts in here. We're going to get together, talk about what's going on in the news, and have some discussion. So we're here. We're glad to have you. And we're going to let everybody start settling into the room. We're glad everybody is here tonight. And hello, U-Haul. Good to see you. And 199 says the Highness. Glad to have you. Glad to have all of you here. Good to see everybody. Lawn chair balloon ready for liftoff. Well, you know, these days, it might just happen. You never know. Anyway, we're glad to have you here with us. And let me start dropping the volume, and we'll say hello to some more people as they filter into the room. Glad to have everybody here with us. And I explained to my audience on Saturday, normally I do a live stream known as Front Porch Brunch on Saturday mornings at 10:30 a.m., which I'm going to continue to do. But as I was explaining to my regulars who attend the brunch, it's kind of reaching the point where I need to make a slight change to the way I do this, if for no other reason, to get sleep at night. So, because that whole, being up till ghastly hours of the morning is kind of like starting to wear on mind and body. And it's like, whoo, okay, got to do something here. So for now, we're going to start doing through the week 2 live streams, one on a Tuesday and one on a Thursday, and started at about 7 o'clock at night. Hopefully it will grow and evolve from there, and it might very well wind up being the way that this channel goes going forward, because like I said, it's kind of, I don't mind staying up late, I don't mind working hard, but at some point mind and body have got to have some rest. And it's kind of like, when I'm getting X amount of sleep one night, X amount the next night, and one's less than the other, okay, something's got to give. So this is where we're going. So now, if I have a guest, as I've said, this particular live stream was usually reserved for when I have a guest on for an interview, which I will still do those. But absent an interview that's scheduled, then you guys will be seeing my beautiful face all the time. So there you go. Anyway, if you haven't done it yet, like I said, send out a Gettr, a Gab, a Truth Social, a tweet, whatever it may be. Tell your friends to get in here. Let's all say hello to each other and, talk about what's going on in the news. And as usual, in 2024, there is always things in the news. And today, interestingly enough, I said yesterday in a video that I did that Donald Trump had reignited the whole question of abortion. Well, Arizona just scheduled a big time. They just threw gasoline on the already heated elements, and we'll get to that in a second. There's some Trump news out there, and then there's some news about everybody's favorite crooked mayor up in Illinois, Tiffany Henyard. If you've never heard about this woman, oh my Lord. I'd heard about this morning. Gypsy, who's one of my regulars, forwarded something over to me, and I found an article in the Chicago Tribune, and we'll take a look at that. And I mean, if you think Fani Willis is a piece of work, let me tell you something. Tiffany Henyard makes her look tame by comparison. But yeah, we're going to talk about some items in the news for a little while, maybe, hour 45, maybe 2, maybe less. Who knows? We'll see how it goes. But I suppose we need to start with the biggest news of the day, and it comes out of the state of Arizona. And I got to admit, the timing of this is extraordinary on so many different levels. I'm not going to go so far as to say I'm being conspiratorial about it, but but I would be very, very, well, let's just get into this and I'll explain what's going on. This is from Breitbart. Arizona State Supreme Court upholds 1864 law limiting nearly all abortions. Article written by Catherine Hamilton. We have the following. The Arizona Supreme Court issued a historic decision on Tuesday, ruling that the state must abide by a 123-year-old law which bars all abortions except to save the life of the mother. The law, which goes back as far as 1864, also calls for a prison sentence of 2 to 5 years for abortionists. Justices heard arguments in the case Planned Parenthood of Arizona versus Mays and Hazerig in December and were asked to answer whether Arizona's 15-week abortion limit signed into law in March of 2022 overrides the older law. Reading a little bit further. While the court did not rule on the constitutionality of the 1864 law, the court issued a 4-2 decision with one recusal, finding that the 1864 law is, quote, enforceable over the newer 15-week limit. All right, now at this point, let's go to part of the ruling itself. I managed to find the text of it. And let me see if I can enlarge this to make it easier for people to read. Here we go. And what I'm going to show you is the conclusion of the majority's opinion. All right. The abortion issue implicates morality and public policy concerns and invariably inspires spirited debate and engenders a passionate disagreement among citizens. A policy matter of this gravity must ultimately be resolved by our citizens through the legislature or the initiative process. Today, we decline to make this weighty policy decision because such judgments are reserved for our citizens. Instead, we merely follow our limited constitutional role and duty to interpret the law as written. See Arizona Constitution, Article 3, Arizona School Boards Association versus State, 252 Arizona 219-229. Quote, we respect the role of the legislature in the discharge of its constitutional duties, and we heed our Constitution's fundamental premise that the division of powers necessarily impels judicial restraint, particularly in the realm of lawmaking. Reading a little bit further. For reasons discussed, the legislature has demonstrated its consistent design to restrict elective abortion to the degree permitted by the Supremacy Clause and an unwavering intent since 1864 to prescribe elective abortions absent a federal constitutional right, precisely what is intended and accomplished in 36-2322. To date, our legislature has never affirmatively created a right to or independently authorized elective abortion. We defer, as we are constitutionally obligated to do, to the legislature's judgment, which is accountable to and thus reflects the immutable will of our citizens. This is the last paragraph of the majority's opinion. We affirm the trial court's judgment vacating the injunction of 18-3603. We vacate the Court of Appeals opinion and stay of enforcement on 13-3603 and remand to the trial court for potential consideration of the remaining constitutional challenges to 13-3603 alleged in Planned Parenthood's complaint for declaratory relief. Although we lift the stay on enforcement of 13-3603, we do so with two caveats. Number one, 13-3603 may be enforced prospectively only. Second, we stay enforcement of 13-3603 for 14 calendar days from the filing of this opinion to permit the parties on remand to determine whether to pursue remaining issues raised in the trial court, and if so, to request further stay of relief at the trial court's discretion. All right, let's get into this. Now, Leah, greetings, my love. Glad to see you, dear. And what's the makeup of this court? All Republican. There are 7 justices on the Arizona State Supreme Court. All of them are Republicans. One member recused themselves on the grounds that they had made speeches dealing with their personal opinion on the question of abortion. Therefore, in good conscience, they recused themselves. There were 6 members that decided this, and it was a 4-2 decision. Oh my gosh. This is one of those rulings that when it drops, it just kind of like blows the mind. And over on Rumble, we have Zippy Demise Lee. I hope I pronounced that right. With a $1 Rumble rant. I finally made it to the stream, LOL. Well, we're glad to have you, Zippy. Good to have you with us. Oh, gosh. This ruling. It's funny. I don't know if Donald Trump knew this ruling was coming down today or what. But I did a video yesterday, and I talked about the position that Donald Trump had taken that the question of abortion should be left up to the individual states. And I agree with that. And what's happening now in Arizona is a perfect example of the blessing of Dobbs. Now, Republican politicians right now are about to tear their hair out because, and legitimately so, by the way, okay? Legitimately so. Because this could, although I don't think it will, this could make winning Arizona at the presidential level tougher. We'll see. I don't think it's going to be nearly the blessing for Democrats that they think it's going to be. Because in the end, I think whoever is voting in the presidential election is going to vote on 2 issues. Immigration / the southern border, or B, the economy. And it's going to, whoever's voting, it's going to be one of those 2 issues, and they could flip-flop as far as importance in someone's vote, particularly in the state of Arizona where they're being overrun at their border. Okay. Like I said, for my part, I want the states to settle the question. And this is what should happen. Now, needless to say, how did we get here? In other words, how did a territorial law from 1864 that was passed really about almost 50 years before Arizona became a state, how the heck did this thing wind up hanging around as long as it did? Well, Abe Hamada, who is currently running for Congress, but 2 years ago he was running for Attorney General of the state of Arizona, did an interview this afternoon, and he was asked this very question. So to give you some idea, let me play this for you. Listen to this.
Did they refer to anything else to look back to the history back to the Civil War era?
Other than the fact that they looked at the text of legislation that was passed in 2022. And I think that was kind of the mistake that so many Republicans kind of didn't realize what would, create this division within the 2 laws. The Court of Appeals actually, just in December, 6 months ago, ruled that the 2022 law stands. So this was the Supreme Court overturning the Court of Appeals to then go back to the territorial ban, which, as we now know, abortion, all the Democrats are, in many ways, they're ecstatic with this decision because they want to use this as a way to drive their voters out to the polls when abortion is going to be on the ballot as a constitutional amendment.
And Hamada is absolutely right about that. It lest you think that he's exaggerating. Remember that old expression from Rahm Emanuel, never let a crisis go to waste? Well, the Biden White House wasted no time on this one. Vice President Kamala Harris, who we lovingly refer to as Vice President Idaho, because we know how much she loves a good potato. Vice President Idaho immediately issued a statement with regard to Arizona, and this runs about almost a minute. I'm going to let you hear the whole thing, and then we're going to get back into the discussion on all this. So, folks, do me a favor and take a listen to this.
Today, the Arizona Supreme Court issued a ruling that creates a near total abortion ban in the state of Arizona, a ban with no exceptions for rape and incest. a ban
But it does allow it for the life of the mother.
that will apply to women before they even know they are pregnant, and threatens prison time for nurses and doctors. And all of this by reviving a law that was passed in the 1800s.
No, that law was still on the books, but we'll get to that.
Before women could vote, and before Arizona was even a state. Understand, to stop bans like this, we need a United States Congress that will restore the protections of Roe v. Wade.
No, what you need is to let the states solve this issue, as the Dobbs decision plainly says.
And when they do, President Joe Biden will sign it into law.
Not if we get him out of office first.
And let's always remember, it does not have to be this way.
Now, on that, I agree with her. This does not have to be this way. Okay, let's get into this. I want to go back to that article from Breitbart and finish off what we were looking at a little earlier. The Arizona Supreme Court ultimately affirmed a lower court's decision vacating an injunction against a near-total ban, but stayed the enforcement of the law for 14 days. Okay, fine, we understand that. And the state Supreme Court decision comes from as pro-abortion activists move forward with a proposed amendment that would create a constitutional right to abortion in Arizona. Okay, now let's get into this. The Democrats had already been working to get a ballot measure up for voting in November. Matter of fact, as of today, or as of last week, they had announced they had 500,000 signatures, which is apparently about 150,000 more than what they need to get this on the ballot as a statewide referendum. And by the way, the Democrats are absolute masters at doing this sort of thing. Okay? California, other states around the country, if they do it brilliantly to drive turnout. They know if they can get a hot button issue on the ballot, they'll get their voters to the polls to vote for that hot button issue. And if it just so happens that vote trickles into other offices, well, all the better for them. They're brilliant at it. So am I surprised that the Democrats are already working on this in Arizona? Absolutely not. They're great at it. I may disagree policy-wise with almost everything the Democrats want to do, but when it comes to election politics, I got to give them a hat tip. They are brilliant. These people are absolutely masters at it. They run circles around the Republicans. And why the Republicans? Well, I know why. One is they're dumb. The other is they're lazy. Why Republicans cannot match that effort, I am loath to understand. I don't get it. Before I go on, let me get some more comments here. Zippy over on Rumble says, my only real concern with abortion, can government enforce the laws fairly? The answer tends to be no. Hell no. Government funding is the main reason. It's everywhere. A shame the same energy cannot be put into fewer gun laws. Amen to that. More ranges, more training, and free ammo. Train the people in liberty. LOL. Lawfare and politics is such a cluster. Yeah, I agree with that. It's a major cluster. Back over on list. Yeah. Well, and that's a good point too. The hearts and minds of the country. We'll get to that. Ruben says, if you don't like the laws of your state, change the law legally. If you don't like something your state is doing, change the law or move to a different. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So the Democrats were already working to get the issue of abortion on the ballot in the state of Arizona. Now, this is just going to fuel the fire. That said, I don't know. I really don't know that this is going to be the blessing that they're hoping for. I can't see it help. I mean, at the margins, it might help them. But honestly, Trump has already sort of neutralized his position on this. And frankly, if the Republicans in Arizona do get any blowback off of this, it's their own fault. Now, let me explain what I'm getting at. This 15-week abortion ban that is on the books in Arizona was passed when the Republicans had the governorship and control of both chambers of the legislature. It's not like the Arizona legislature didn't know that this old 1864 territorial law was still in the books. The Republicans out in Arizona could have cleaned this up once and for all and put it to bed. This never had to become an issue. But either out of laziness or for some other reason, the Republicans let this thing stay on the books. Okay? And now it's come back to bite them. So I don't know why. I'm like I say, I am loath to like I said, it's either laziness or stupidity again. But I don't understand why the Republicans just didn't clean this up when they had the chance when they enacted their 15-week abortion ban law. They could have cleaned up the language on the 1864 territorial law, or, sunsetted it or whatever. They could have just taken this whole issue off the table. Now, because of either their laziness or their stupidity, they've got to deal with this. And now everybody's dealing with it. And the Democrats think they're going to be able to make hay out of this. And like I said, at some level, they might be able to. They just might. Okay? But I don't think this is going to be everything they're hoping for. I just don't. I mean, let's see how this plays out. But now, I also have some other thoughts on this. There are people who are already making hay against Donald Trump. I saw it on, I think, an article on thehill.com where someone said, yeah, this is what happens when you leave it to the states. Yeah, and guess what's going to happen? Either between now and November, excuse me one second. Either between now and November, the Arizona legislature is going to pass a law and the governor's going to sign it. And keep in mind, the governor out there is a Democrat, so there's going to be some give and take on this. So either the legislature is going to pass a law that cleans this thing up, or the people of Arizona, in their sovereignty through their vote, are going to decide the question of what they want to do about abortion in Arizona, which is exactly what ought to happen, which is exactly the position that Donald Trump is taking. Look, when it comes to the question of abortion, or at least how it's being handled post Roe v. Wade, I blame the Republicans a lot for the troubles they've got. And by that, here's what I'm getting at. The Republicans, both nationally and at the state level, had decades to prepare for what the world would look like post Roe v. Wade. They kept saying for years, for decades, for what amounted to a half a century, that they wanted Roe v. Wade overturned. They wanted it overturned. They want to get rid of it. It's got to be sent back to the states. It's got to be put back in the hands of the people, yada, yada, yada. Well, the day comes that it finally happens, and they fell flat on their face. They were not prepared to deal with it. Or worse, on the other side of that coin, you had people in the pro-life movement that thought that because they got Roe overturned, that the country was ready for out-and-out bans on abortion. And they forgot something very important. And I want to go back to Leah's comment because she absolutely nails this. Let's just get and them elected and then work on the minds and hearts of the country. And it's that last phrase, the minds and hearts of the country, that I want to focus on for a few minutes. Okay. I want to give you guys, and you probably already know this, but I want to remind people who are here tonight and people who are going to be watching this later about something very important. Everybody focuses on the question of slavery in the United States. Well, slavery in the 18th century and the 19th century was just as prominent in other nations around the world, particularly Great Britain. It was legal in the British Empire to own slaves. In the 1770s, there was a young man in the House of Commons named William Wilberforce who introduced a resolution calling for the abolition of slavery throughout the British Empire. Okay. And the resolution was voted down. And every year, William Wilberforce would keep bringing this resolution back to the House of Commons. But in the meanwhile, William Wilberforce was working with the abolitionist movement in Great Britain with writings, with pamphlets, with speeches, with organizing societies. And this effort went on for 50 years. And then came the day when William Wilberforce introduced that same resolution that he'd been introducing for 50 years in the House of Commons. And on that day, that baby sailed right on through. Now, was that because of, political change? Yes. But more importantly, it was because society was ready to take that step. All that work that William Wilberforce had put in culturally, okay, that he and so many others in the abolitionist movement in Great Britain had put in for decades, finally came to fruition. The society of Great Britain was ready to make the change and say, yeah, we need to abolish the evil of slavery. In the U.S., we've done the opposite of what was done historically 200 years ago. Okay? Whereas in Great Britain, on the question of slavery, they changed the culture, which led to a change of the law. We changed the law, but we didn't prepare the culture. Now, I'm not being completely accurate with that statement. Don't get me wrong. Public opinion on the question of abortion has changed considerably in the 50 years since Roe has been on the books, or was on the books, I should say. Good evening, sir. Glad to have you here. I'll be saying hello to a few other people here in a minute. People's opinion on the question of abortion has changed quite a bit since Roe went on the books in 1973. A large part of that is because of technology. You can sonogram and see a 3D image of a baby. We're reaching the point now you can 4D image a baby in the mother's womb. And once you do that, there's no going back on that argument. Okay? I remember during 2016, people were giving Donald Trump all kinds of grief about the fact he'd flipped his position on abortion, because he used to be pro-choice. He's very much pro-choice on the question of abortion. And someone said, well, what made you change your mind? He said, had some friends of mine who had a baby. I saw the sonogram. He said, when you're seeing that, how can you come to the conclusion that this is now a question of choice? Now, People can sit there and argue about whether he's being sincere or whether he's giving a political answer. Maybe a little of both. I don't know. But the point is, technology has been one of the leading factors that's changed people's minds on the question of abortion. But unlike the example I gave about slavery in Great Britain 200 years ago, the pro-life movement spent so much time focusing on, we've got to get this person elected so we can get this judge appointed, yada, yada, yada. We didn't change the culture. So when Roe got overturned via Dobbs, the pro-life movement, particularly at the national level, worked from the assumption, hey, it's over. We can start enacting these bans all across the country and yada, yada, yada. And the pro-choice movement was like, oh, hell you will. That's why in places like Kansas, in Ohio, and others, let's just be honest about it. The pro-life movement's getting their butt kicked. Absolutely getting their fannies kicked. And it's primarily in large part because, and if I may be so bold as to say it, the pro-life movement, tried to take too big a bite of the apple. They tried to move society, in my opinion, further along than where it was prepared to go. And that's why you're seeing them, again, this is just my opinion, but I don't think I'm too far off base. You can't get someone to go somewhere that they don't want to walk to. Okay? You cannot get a society to go along with some kind of complete and total ban on abortion if your population's not there. If your population is of the point, okay, look, I don't like abortion. I don't like it in the third trimester. I'm not real wild about it in the second trimester. Maybe we could get some kind of compromise. Go there. Okay. And in the meanwhile, keep working to change hearts and minds. Keep educating. Keep making your arguments. Keep everything else. Okay. But the pro-life movement just assumed that they'd won. We got rid of Roe, and now it's all over. Now we're going to start enacting these statewide bans where you totally cannot have an abortion at all. And yada, yada, and blah, blah, blah. There you go. So, yeah, look, abortion was never not going to be an issue in the 2024 campaign. It's back for right now. It's going to be there in November. I just don't think this is going to be nearly. I don't think this is just going to be nearly as big an issue as Biden and the Democrats are hoping for. Yeah, this might get a few more voters to the polls marginally, but I just don't see this being the driving issue come November. Like I say, this election is going to come down to two things primarily: the border and illegal immigration, number one, and number two, the economy. And as a subset of that, inflation. Okay? It's not. And then foreign policy is going to be third, particularly the question of Ukraine and the Israel-Hamas war. That's what's going to be driving a lot of this. So, see what you guys are saying on this question. So, no, I didn't. I really didn't. I didn't think it would be that big of an issue in the midterms. Democrats made it that way. Primarily because, like I said, the Republicans don't know how to message jack crap. They're terrible. They're awful at it. I said this in my video the other night, and I'll say it again. If the Republicans would have adopted Trump's position immediately after the Dobbs decision, they'd have been a whole lot better off. They would. They would be insulated on this question. But then you got dipsticks like Lindsey Graham out there. We need a federal law on this question. No, you don't, Lindsey. Leave it alone. It's no longer a federal issue. Well, it doesn't say we can't do anything about it. Well, there's one thing that says you can't. It's called the 10th Amendment. Yeah, I'm gonna say something's probably gonna get me in trouble here, but oh well, what else is new? You ever wondered why there are certain people in Washington, D.C. that want to keep the abortion issue right there? You ever wondered why? Money, 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 money. Oh, forget this whole thing about no, exactly. Well, that I disavow, but I understand where the sentiment's coming from. Yeah, exactly. I agree. Small time, I agree with you completely on this. I agree with you completely. Let's see what else you guys are saying. Zippy says, only problem is the fetus has no will. I'd rather government not get into enforcing law over something that's out of a person with will. That's very true. Very true. See what else you guys are saying. Who else? Oh, Commander. I'm sorry. Thank you for the super chat. I don't know if it means anything, but Callie's election is certified on the 12th. They get 39 days to get mail-in. Jeez. Oh, my word. That's insane. Just insane. Well, thank you for that piece of information and for the $5 super chat. I genuinely appreciate that. See what else is being said here. No, you're all right. We're glad you're here. Don't worry about it. It's all good. I figured 7 o'clock was a good time to start this sort of thing. Just after most people have dinner out the way, that sort of thing. Let's see what else we have. Yeah, it keeps them in money in an office. Grift. I hate to say it, but it's true. Yeah. Leanne says, I'm 1,000% pro-life, but let's just win and change hearts and minds. Yeah. Change the hearts and minds first. The legislation will come thereafter. What was it? Andrew Breitbart's great comment. Politics is downstream from culture. That. Yeah. No fetus deletus unless life-threatening. In cases of rape, it says perp does life, works for government. I wouldn't have a problem with any of that. I really wouldn't. And again, if everybody wants to see what Trump's idea of letting the states handle this issue looks like, watch Arizona. Seriously, watch Arizona. Keep an eye on it. Because, like I said, one of two things for sure is going to happen between now and November. And I will almost bet you that somewhere between now and November, before we ever get to the question of a statewide referendum in Arizona, I will almost bet you that the legislature of Arizona is going to pass something cleaning up the language on this 1864 territorial law that the court upheld today, and it'll get on Katie Hobbs' desk, the governor out there, and she'll sign it. Because how can she not? I mean, think about the politics of that. Okay? The Republican legislature says, okay, look, we need to clean up the language on this thing. This was from over 160 years ago. We passed a law in 2022. Okay, let's straighten this thing out. How is she going to veto that? No, she might. But I mean, talk about taking the issue off the table for the Democrats. There you go. If Katie Hobbs were to refuse to sign a law like that, she got big problems. Because at that point, she just neutralized the whole issue. But we'll see. I'd love to know when giving up a child became more shameful. Good question. That's a real good question. Real good question. But oh yeah, this is back big time. So it is, what time is it? 7:40 Eastern. My name is Brian Tripp, and I'm the Front Porch Conservative. We're hanging out, chatting on the porch. Like I said over the weekend, we're going to start doing a couple of live streams through the week. Right now, we're doing it on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We'll start them at 7 o'clock at night. And we'll talk about some of the items in the news, get y'all's take on what's going on, and laugh a little if we can, cry often because it is the government we're talking about. And in the midst of it all, we'll find a way to get through it together. So if you haven't done it yet, send out a tweet, a Gettr, a Gab, a Truth Social, where the heck you are on social media. And also, give me some thumbs up, people. It will help the algorithm. If you haven't done it yet, smash that like button. Daggone ya. I love you guys. Zippy over on Rumble says, law should focus on individual will. Government simply cannot be trusted. One of my favorite, Zippy, thank you for that Rumble rant. I genuinely appreciate it. One of my favorite authors, he's passed away, the legendary P.J. O'Rourke. Zippy, I'm going to give you one of his lines you would probably love if you don't know it already. P.J. O'Rourke was famous for saying, giving money and power to government is like giving whiskey and car keys to teenage boys. And that's the phrase. He would never finish it, but I bet y'all know where he was going with it. Giving money and power to government is like giving whiskey and car keys to teenage boys. Yep, it's a recipe for disaster. So, yeah, government cannot be trusted. One of my favorite books of his, and it's been years since I've picked up a copy of it, Parliament of Whores. It was written in the late 80s, early 90s. And the last chapter and the last pages, PJ goes on to write about government is nothing but a collection of whores. It's nothing more than trading for money, for votes, and everything else. And he said, but in a democracy, we are the whores. I thought, ooh. If you've never read P.J. O'Rourke, I really recommend him to you. Really. Yeah, and small time, I agree with you completely on this. You would never have had all those National Lampoon movies without P.J. O'Rourke laying the groundwork. I totally agree with that. Totally. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's shift gears a little bit, and let's talk about a couple or three other items that are in the news. And don't get me wrong, I won't say I'm learning as I go with this because I've been doing live streams now for over a year by myself. But, it's going to take me a little bit to work out the kinks on how to make this thing go really good. So if y'all will be patient with me, I promise I will, we'll make this thing really smooth and good. And, we'll have fun with everybody here. So I want to touch on something that I've been talking about for a while, and some folks in the mainstream media are starting to pick up on this. And I want to take you first to some results of elections in the primaries to set this up. Last Tuesday, oh, bless your heart, dear. Bless your heart. I appreciate it. There are moments I feel like I know what I'm doing when I do these live streams, and then there are moments it's like, what the heck? I don't know. But I genuinely appreciate that, darling. Love you. Love everybody, by the way. Y'all are awesome. Best audience on the internet. Funniest audience on the internet, too. Y'all make me look way smarter than I am. Last Tuesday was the primary out in Wisconsin. And there has been an interesting phenomenon that's been going on now for quite some time. And I want to show you this. Here are the results of the Democrat primary in Wisconsin. Now, Joe Biden won. Okay, no shock there. But you'll notice this thing called unrestricted delegate. Now, in other states, it's been called uncommitted. Okay. That is over 8% of the total primary vote on the Democrat side for president. You take that and you couple it with the Dean Phillips vote, and you're talking about a little over 11%. That's Wisconsin. Let me show you guys a few other states, and then I'm going to bring up a point. Or I should say, I'm going to show you something that other people have been picking up or starting to pick up on. This is Michigan. Uncommitted, 13% of the vote. You couple it with votes for other candidates, and you're talking about, what is that? 9, 6. Talking about almost 19% of the vote out of Michigan. Okay. Let's take a look at a couple other places. Here's Colorado. 9%. Couple it with everything else, and you're talking about 17, 10, 13, about almost 16%. Okay. And one more state, and this is the one that's really the most telling. This is the state of Minnesota. Check this out. Uncommitted. That's almost 19%. You couple it with everything else, that's about just a touch under 30%. Now, I saw something today, and I will pass this on. All right? I'm going to pass this on because it definitely, I want to show it to you and be totally fair about doing this, okay? Let me find it here because I saw this and I about jumped for joy. This kind of blew my mind. Oh, come on. There you are. There you are. Guys, this was posted on Twitter. Now, remember what I showed you about the state of Minnesota? Let me put this back up here. You've got almost 30% of Democrats who would as soon vote for anybody else or vote for nobody than Joe Biden. Now, I think what I'm about to show you is going to drop somewhere in the next couple of days. This is a poll out of Minnesota. Joe Biden only has a 2-point lead. Let me enlarge this so you can see it for yourselves. I'll say it again. Joe Biden only has a 2-point lead in Minnesota. Now, let me give you some perspective on this. If you know the answer to the question I'm about to ask, drop it in chat. Question: when was the last time that a Republican presidential candidate won the state of Minnesota in an election? I know the answer to this. I just, if you don't know, that's fine, but I'm just seeing if there's anybody out there that might happen to know this one. When was the last time a Republican presidential candidate won the state of Minnesota in a presidential election? Ding, 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 ding. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. He's absolutely right. Nixon, 1972. Yeah, exactly. No, Reagan didn't do it. Interestingly, it was not Reagan. And there's a great story behind that. Reagan told his people, I mean, look, Reagan knew he was going to win. He was going to win in a landslide. Okay. Reagan went to his campaign people and said, look, Walter Mondale's from Minnesota. It's his home state. Let him have it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's exactly why he did it. He, out of courtesy to him, he let Mondale have his home state. There's only two places, that Walter Mondale won in the 1984 election: the District of Columbia and the state of Minnesota. And even then, Reagan barely lost Minnesota. I think it's like 4,000 votes or something like that. But my point is this: you've got about 30%. You've got about 30% of Democrats in Minnesota that don't want to vote for Joe Biden. They'll vote for anybody else, or they won't even vote at all. You now have a poll, and again, I think this is about ready to drop somewhere in the next few days. You got a poll coming out of Minnesota where Biden only has a 2-point lead. Okay. Now, I have said, I'm gone out on a limb here. And I said during the night of the Minnesota primary, I said that I think Trump's going to take Minnesota. Okay. I stand by that prediction. I'll probably be sweating bullets on that night, but I stand by my prediction. I really do believe Trump's going to take Minnesota. Now, would I be shocked if Joe Biden held on to it? Not necessarily. Historical trend? Ruben, I do not know the answer to that question. I'm almost willing to bet it's registered voters. I haven't seen the poll. I've just seen this top line number. But I'm almost willing to bet it's registered voters. Would I be surprised if Joe Biden held on to Minnesota? No. Historical trends, voter registration, everything else, I wouldn't be surprised if he held on to it, but by a very narrow margin. By the same token, I wouldn't be surprised if Donald Trump took it. And I'm out on a limb right now. I think he's going to do it. Now, as I've said, if I'm wrong, I'll come back here and tell you guys. But honest to God, I believe he's going to take Minnesota. Which brings me to this article in Breitbart. Growing anti-Biden uncommitted movement threatens president's re-election chances, reveals Democrats' rift with young voters. Article written by Nick Gilbertson. The growing uncommitted vote movement, which has caught fire in Democrat presidential nominating contest and led to reportedly 500,000 votes being cast nationally against President Joe Biden, is becoming a significant liability threatening his re-election prospects. Frustration with the Biden administration's handling of Israel's response to Hamas's October terrorist attacks is mainly driving the uncommitted movement, and polling data reveals that there are substantial generational differences among American voters regarding the Israel-Hamas war and attitudes toward Palestinians and Israelis. Biden's uncommitted problem is not just the Arab American and Muslim American voters, but with younger voters in general who are a critical component of the Democrat Party's coalition. Reading a little further, the uncommitted movement gained much more steam than expected at its inception with the Listen to Michigan campaign, the highly effective campaign which the New York Times reported launched a mere 3 weeks before the February 27 primary and had a modest $250,000 budget, led to more than 100,000 voters checking the uncommitted box in protest of Biden's handling of the war. The total vote for uncommitted obliterated its initial goal of more than 90,000 votes in Michigan and has spread like wildfire to other states, especially the Rust Belt, which has had a major hand in deciding the last 2 elections. Okay, let's talk about this for a minute. Everybody's talking about, and Flagrant, I saw your comment. I want to get to it here in a second. Everybody is talking about, is this candidate going to affect the race between Biden and Trump? Will this candidate, well, maybe not. And let's get into this. My good buddy Cam put this up here. RFK is going to be a much greater detriment to Biden than to Trump, depending on which state he gets on the ballot in. That's my only caveat. I agree with you. The funny thing is, though, some states RFK seems to affect Trump. Some states he seems to affect Biden. But my point that I'm getting to is this. I'm not so sure it's as much one candidate or another that's going to hurt Biden or Trump as much as certain voting blocks are going to hurt them. I'm not the only person who's seeing this. Rich Barris has commented on this, the People's Pundit, best pollster in America. And other people have been commenting on this in the mainstream media. There is a remarkable role reversal that's going on right now. Okay. It used to be that older voters favored Republicans and younger voters favored Democrats. In this election, so far, that's the caveat that I add to this, so far, it's the reverse of the two. Younger voters are going for Trump. Older voters are going for Biden. Now, let's talk about this for a second. I would argue that in part, this may not be totally true, but in part, one of the reasons that older voters have traditionally voted Republican is generation. Okay. You had people who, and this is true up until maybe the time of the mid-90s, you had a World War II generation that tended to be older, more conservative, had gone through, major conflict. They tended to be voting Republican. Younger voters, baby boomers in particular, were voting Democrat. Okay. I'm starting to wonder, and I am seeing this in various places, if we're not heading for a generational shift. If the reason that older voters are more supporting Biden is because that baby boomer bunch is finally getting on the other end of the age spectrum, so to speak. And I have seen this in more than one place. Gen Z is getting more and more conservative all the time. I'm just starting to wonder if there's not setting up a very, I've said for the longest time, this election is going to be any number of different things. And one of the things that it will be is a generational election. What I was focusing on was the question of what comes after Trump, what comes after Biden, because these, realistically speaking, are the last two men of their respective generation that will ever be seeking the presidency. What's going to be coming up next will be, folks probably in their 50s and 60s, Gavin Newsom's, Gretchen Whitmer's, J.D. Vance's, etc. Different generation, different view on the issues, etc. Okay. The thing that I didn't realize, and now it's starting to come into focus, this is going to be a generational election in that we could very well be on the edge of a shift in voting patterns among certain age groups. Okay. So, this uncommitted thing, that Breitbart's talking about, I've been watching this for a while. A lot of people have been watching this for a while, but it's becoming more and more obvious. And if that poll out of Minnesota is correct, then the damage is starting to set in. I heard the other day, matter of fact, Rich Barris was commenting on this, that it's being reported that Biden is sending a team of people out to Minnesota to start organizing the state. Now, when's the last time you heard of a Democrat having to defend the state of Minnesota? It's almost unheard of. It's almost unthinkable. Like I said, the last time a Republican carried the state of Minnesota was 1972. You're talking about a good 50 plus years since anybody has even, Trump got close in 2016, but out and out carried it hasn't happened since Nixon. So yeah, that uncommitted vote, the Israel-Hamas conflict, keep your eyes on this. There's a million and one reasons why Anthony Blinken, Jake Sullivan, all these guys, and Biden are wanting the Israel-Hamas conflict off the front page of the newspapers. They're wanting it off the internet. They want to bury this issue so that hopefully they can bring the Palestinian Americans back into the fold in time for the general election. Because right now it's killing them. It's absolutely killing them politically. They've got to get this thing off the table. Right now, they can't do it. And because of that, the Palestinian American voters, you know, they're giving, I heard the other day, and I do not have the article pulled up. I wish I did. I wish I would have brought this one. I heard the other day of a hearing on Capitol Hill in the Senate was disrupted by Palestinian protesters. I brought a story to the live stream on Saturday morning, Front Porch Brunch, 10:30 a.m. Eastern, ladies and gentlemen. Be there or be square, where Jamie Raskin, the very famous congressman from Maryland, Democrat, was trying to give a speech at University of Maryland, and he gets interrupted by pro-Palestinian protesters to the point he just gives up on trying to give the speech. Good evening, sir. Glad to have you. You know, he's trying to give a speech. He can't even do it because the pro-Palestinian folks are just drowning him out. Hillary Clinton goes to a show on Broadway with Bill. She's going to her motorcade, and you had 3 or 4 very vocal pro-Palestinian Democrats called her everything but a white woman. I mean, it was awful. Yeah, Raskin represents California. He may as well represent California. Jeez. But I mean, this is my point. And I've always said, you know, to the Democrat Party, be careful the monster that you create because it can come back to get you. Well, now it's coming back to get them. So, you know, this whole, just keep your eye. I mean, there's more primaries coming up, not that many. Pennsylvania's coming up. Hang on a minute. When is the Pennsylvania primary? Hang on a minute. Tell you here in a second. Pennsylvania primary is coming up. It's coming up the 23rd of this month. Then in May, you've got, what else you got? I know you've got the West Virginia primary coming up. Maryland's coming up. Nebraska's coming up. Oh, by the way, we can get into that in a little bit. But yeah, Pennsylvania's coming up later this month. Keep your eyes on this stuff, guys, because everybody talks about, you know, Trump's got this problem inside of his base, you know, the Nikki Haley voters, they're not coming home, yada, yada, yada. No. Quite the opposite. It's Biden who's got the problem inside of his own base. Yeah, Pennsylvania primary is 2 weeks from tonight. I don't think I'm going to live stream it, but I'm definitely going to be watching the results of it. Now, and it may be this uncommitted vote doesn't show up so much in Pennsylvania. It could be. Wouldn't be surprised. Wouldn't be surprised at all. Oh, that is absolutely true. Well, now, I wouldn't call Indian Jesus a troller. I would not call Indian Jesus a troller. I love Lutch. You know, love him to death, but I definitely would not call him a troller. That's one thing I love about my chat, by the way. They treat if a troll does show up, y'all are very respectful to the troll. Oh, you are trolling? Well, okay then. All right, y'all, let him have it. Anywho, let's see. But yeah, this uncommitted thing, people are starting to notice, and it's becoming more and more pronounced. Good evening, Professor. Glad to have you here. Glad to have you. Always good to see you. See, I forgot about the first rule. I'm a man. You're a woman. Therefore, I don't know anything. Therefore, you're always right. No. Don't pile on the troll. Come on, y'all. Behave yourselves. You know. I mean, there's other people's live streams I could refer to right now, but I shall refrain from doing so. But yeah, I know y'all have class and dignity. How often you demonstrate, that's a whole other question. But I know you have class. No, I'm just kidding. I love you guys. It is about 5 minutes after 8 o'clock in the evening here on the East Coast. My name is Brian Trippett. I am the Front Porch Conservative. We are joined tonight by one of the most fun and lively groups. I love my audience, and it's getting bigger all the time. And by the way, on a side note, thank you guys so much. Thank you guys so much for everything you're doing to help me grow the channel. I am like one subscriber away from 900. And it's killing me every stinking day. I'm like, will you please roll over? But thank you for everything that you guys are doing to help spread the word about my going little concern of a social media channel. And I love you guys to death. You guys are just the best audience. You really are. Yeah, and it's coming. It's coming. It's just, it's going to happen. And believe me, if you hear a shout on the East Coast somewhere, it'll be me. When that day happens, it will be me. So let's shift gears a little bit. There is some Trump news beyond the question of abortion. As you all know, on April 15th is supposed to start a trial up in Manhattan. One of the most ridiculous of the four that I've heard of. Okay. It is a case brought by Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, who we here lovingly refer to as Alvin the New York Chipmunk. Alvin the New York Chipmunk is bringing a case in Manhattan court that is trying to get Trump on the question of federal election law violations. And yeah, well, there's another nickname for him. I like that one. Fat. Now, I don't want to call the poor guy fat. I really don't. I think that Alvin the New York Chipmunk is probably a more accurate descriptor. Hang on just a second, guys. I want to see if I can find this. I gotta see it because somebody somewhere has got to have done this at one time or another. Oh, please, someone has had to have done this. No, I thought they had. Well, let me put it to you this way. In your mind's eye, take a split screen of Alvin the Chipmunk on one side. And I'm thinking the 1960s or 70s Alvin the Chipmunk. And put Alvin Bragg on the other. And don't tell me that Alvin Bragg does not have a great deal of looks similar to Alvin the Chipmunk. Hence, that's why he gets the nickname Alvin the New York Chipmunk. Okay. So Alvin the New York Chipmunk is bringing a case up in Manhattan on the grounds that Trump has violated federal election law as it relates to the settlement that Michael Cohen, his then attorney, and the porn star Stormy Daniels. Okay. And I had I call him a friend of the channel. He's a good guy, Daniel Street, who's an attorney out of Louisiana. We got into this discussion. For those of you or you don't remember what happened, Trump empowered Michael Cohen because he'd heard about this story. Cohen went out and made an arrangement to buy the story and bury it. Okay. And then Trump reimbursed him for it. Well, Alvin the New York Chipmunk Alvin Bragg, is trying to say that Trump knowingly did all this with the intention of hiding the expenditure in such a way that he would have violated federal election law. Now, without getting into the weeds, and we can do that sometime as we get, matter of fact, we might do it on Thursday since we're going to be getting close to month. We might do it either Thursday or Saturday. We'll go over the details of this, and I'll have to go back and watch that live stream I did with Daniel. But the case is ridiculous. Okay. Now, as if all of that weren't bad enough, then you've got a judge, Juan Marchand, up in Manhattan, who's going to be presiding over this thing, who is riddled, and I mean riddled, with conflict of interest. His daughter is working as a fundraiser for the Democrat Party. His wife used to work for Letitia James up and until 2022. And Trump keeps trying to bring a motion to get this guy recused. Motion's not going anywhere. And then on top of that, so Trump's pointing all this stuff out about the daughter. So Marchand, at the request of Alvin the New York Chipmunk, slaps a gag order on Trump. Okay. Well, Trump appealed the gag order, which frankly I think you ought to do anyway, because that gag order is a violation of Trump's First Amendment right to free speech. Okay. And the part that cracks me up the most about all this, just absolutely cracks me up, is Trump is not doing anything other than pointing out the obvious. Marchand is basically inferring in his order that what he's doing is dangerous, because the more Trump keeps talking about it, the more he puts his daughter in danger. That's a load of crap. Okay. It just, and we'll get, well, I saw a question and I want to answer this. Is it illegal to give hush money? The first political thing I was old enough to follow was Gary Hart. Was that not the same type of circumstance? Well, this is I don't know that I'd call this hush money. There's a particular legal term that Daniel Street used. It's called catch and kill. In other words, there's a story out there that could be sold to a publication. It's not illegal to give hush money, at least as I understand what this circumstance is, Leanne. It's not. Basically what he did was settle a nuisance issue. She was about ready to take the story to the National Enquirer and one other publication. Cohen basically intercepted Stormy Daniels and paid her to basically buy the story. All right. So I don't know that I'd call it hush money. And I'm not saying your use of the term is wrong. Don't get me wrong. But no, I don't think it's illegal. Basically, if it were illegal, there'd be a whole bunch more stories out there than what there are, which maybe there ought to be, but you get my point. So no, I don't think it was illegal. I think Trump got wind of it and wanted to bury the story for whatever reason. Okay. So I hope that answers the question. Oh yeah, Stormy is many number of different things. Stormy Daniels is any number of different things. Believe me, that chick is, yeah. How come Trump gets a gag order every time he disagrees with a judge? That's a great question. That is a fantastic question. See, I've always said I've got the smartest audience on the internet, and small time just proved it. Every time Trump turns around and tries to defend himself in the court of public opinion, a judge is slapping a gag order on him. But Jack Smith can go down to Miami and just absolutely ream out Judge Cannon, and nothing happens to him. Mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. We'll get to this. We'll get to this. Stormy Daniels asking for money can be considered blackmail, but what was definitely wrong was her breaking the NDA anyway. She owes Trump to the tune of about $300,000, as I understand it right now. Oh, well, thank you, sir. I genuinely appreciate this. To the CBAS and to Christ and the Apocalypse. You troll. But thank you for the super chat. I genuinely appreciate it. Yeah, absolute double standards. Totally ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. But Trump appeals the gag order. Well, and this was yesterday. It was announced he was appealing the gag order and asking for a change of venue. Well, both of them got shot down. And then late this afternoon, this happened. Judge grants Donald Trump's request to reconsider the gag order. Ooh, this is getting spicy. By Wendell Husebro of Breitbart. A New York appeals court judge on Tuesday permitted the full appellate division, First Department, to consider relaxing a sweeping gag order against former President Donald Trump. The appellate court could reportedly decide to delay the criminal trial while it considers the gag order appeal. Uh-oh, don't you know that Alvin the New York Chipmunk is hating this crap? Reading further, Trump sued, not exactly the right term, but okay, whatever. Trump sued the New York Supreme Court Justice Juan Marchand in an appeals court on Monday to challenge the judge's sweeping gag order. Marchand, who is presiding over the New York criminal case, imposed the gag order after news surfaced about a connection between Marchand's daughter and conspiracy theorist Adam Schiff. Those are Wendell Husebro's words, by the way, not mine. A little further, the gag order, as Breitbart's Nick Gilbertson reported, prevents Trump from making public comments about witnesses participating in the trial. Counsel other than Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, quote, members of the court staff and the district attorney staff, or the family members or any counsel or staff member, if those statements are made with the intent to materially interfere with counsel or staff's work on the case, it also encompasses prospective jurors. And I got sent something by up in Connecticut. So we'll get to that part about the jurors here in a minute. As soon as Monday, the day the trial is set to begin, the full appellate division's first department could rule on Trump's request to lift the gag order, CBS News reported. Trump defense lawyer Emil Bove argued Tuesday morning that the gag order creates a, quote, irreparable harm because the former president can't respond to attacks from expected trial witnesses Michael Cohen and Stormy Daniels and prevents him from criticizing one of the prosecutors in the case and speaking in support of a recent motion to recuse the judge based on the conduct of his daughter. Judge Cynthia Kern responded to Trump's request for a stay of the entire proceeding with skepticism, asking how the gag order is any different from a similar order that was upheld in Trump's federal election interference case. Stephen Wu, a lawyer for the Manhattan District Attorney, pushed back on the request for a stay, telling the court about Trump's, quote, uncontested history of denigrating remarks, including calling witnesses losers, horseface, and deranged psychopaths. Trump and the prosecution must provide written arguments to the court by April 29th. The court will also consider a separate ruling about whether to keep the case in Manhattan, a location that likely benefits the prosecution. Written arguments on the second consideration must be submitted by April 22nd. As the case presses forward, jury selection is scheduled for April 15th in New York City. The case is New York v. Trump, number 71543-23, in the New York State Supreme Court for New York County. All right, let's get into this. Let me find real fast that list of oh yeah, here it is. Yeah. Up in Connecticut sent me this. Now, talking about the jurors got the list of questions. All right, it's a jury questionnaire given to everybody. Now, check this out. This is going to blow your mind. Here are some of the questions that the jury members are being asked. Are you signed up for, or have you ever been signed up for, subscribed to, or followed any newsletter or email listserv run by or on behalf of Mr. Trump or the Trump Organization? All right, seems like a fairly reasonable question. It's not too out of the realm. Do you currently follow Donald Trump on any social media site, or have you done so in the past? It's not bad. Have you, a relative or a close friend, ever worked or volunteered for any anti-Trump group or organization? All right, so balanced so far. Have you ever attended a rally or campaign event for any anti-Trump group or organization? Are you signed up for, have you ever been signed up for, subscribed to, or followed any newsletter or email list serve run by or on behalf of any anti-Trump group? Do you currently follow any anti-Trump group or organization on social media? Have you done something bad? Now, here's the one that's gotten everybody. Have you ever considered yourself a supporter of or belong to any of the following? The QAnon movement, the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, the Three Percenters, the Boogaloo Boys, Antifa? Oh my, no wonder everybody's up in arms about this. Good grief. You know, win or lose the November election, there's a lot of things about New York State that absolutely need to get straightened out. And I was watching a live stream the Sunday night with Viva Fry and Robert Barnes, two of my favorite. You want to follow stuff related to the law, they are great. They got a show on Rumble Sunday nights, 6:00 Eastern. And Robert Barnes made a really good point. The corruption of the New York judiciary has absolutely been laid bare for everybody to see. It is ridiculous. Just plain old ridiculous. And Leanne, thank you for the super chat. I genuinely appreciate it. My Jesus is not Indian, but he does bring a sword. I'm going to let y'all sort this stuff out in chat. Okay, thank you. Absolutely. I don't disavow, but I disavow slightly. It's just that state has so many problems. Judicially, politically, it is awful. Yeah, there's a bunch of them. There is no way Donald Trump is going to get a fair trial in Manhattan. It's not going to happen, y'all. It's just not. And it's ridiculous to assume that he will. If it were out on Long Island, maybe, but not in Manhattan. And the tragedy of it, and I'm not saying that your past actions should or should not be determinative of the verdict you get in a court, because as far as I'm concerned, if you're truly guilty of that which you are accused, you should be punished accordingly. But when you stop and think about over the years, all the things that Donald Trump has done for the city of New York, and this is what's happening to a man really that did a lot. I mean, Giuliani, absolutely. And I saw someone in chat mentioning it. But Donald Trump has done a lot over the years for the city of New York. And this is how New York is paying it back after all it's all said and done. Now, again, if somebody's guilty of something, I don't care if they built the entire skyline of New York City. You go into court, you get what you deserve. But in all honesty, this is what Trump's getting? Unbelievable. Just unbelievable. So at any rate, Trump's got at least a shot of getting the gag order lifted. I don't know that he's going to get the venue changed, but yeah, it's just ridiculous. Just ridiculous. Let's see, what else have we got? Oh, I gotta do this one. This is the last story of the night, and then we're gonna bring this thing in for a landing. So y'all have heard about Henyard, right? Tiffany Henyard, the mayor of Dalton, Illinois. You know, my nickname, one of my nicknames for Fonnie Willis down in Atlanta is Drama Mama. Let me tell you something. This Tiffany Henyard makes Fonnie Willis look like a choir girl. I mean, I'm serious. I mean, I don't know how much of this whole Tiffany Henyard thing are you guys aware of, or how much have you followed this? I will admit I haven't followed this one as closely as I should. But man, you talk about a walking poster child for corruption. That's Tiffany Henyard. Good evening, sir. Yeah, Funny Willis, among other nicknames for her. Tiffany Henyard is literally the poster child for local government corruption. This lady has done everything imaginable. Now, she has been investigated by a number of people. The FBI is even getting involved. Well, a piece of news broke that the trustees of the city of Dalton, Illinois, have decided to have Tiffany Henyard's work investigated. The irony of it is who's doing the investigation. I agree completely. She's just atrocious. Professor, I agree with you completely on this one. She is absolutely atrocious. You know. But it's who is investigating Henyard that really will crack you up. This is from the Chicago Tribune. Get ready to laugh. I might not be able to get through this article reading it for the laughter. Dalton trustees hire former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot as special investigator to probe Henyard's actions. Article written by Mike Nolan. Dalton trustees have hired former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot as a special investigator to be paid $400 an hour and tasked with probing spending habits of Dalton Mayor Tiffany Henyard. The decision was made at a meeting Monday night in Dalton. Henyard is likely to veto the action as illegal, and a letter from attorney for the village threatened trustees with a lawsuit if they proceeded to hire Lightfoot. The former mayor and former assistant U.S. attorney was set to start work on Tuesday, looking into what trustees have said is, quote, excessive and unauthorized use of village funds by Henyard that has resulted in Dalton having a deficit of more than $5 million. There was loud clapping and cheering from the audience of approximately 200 residents after Lightfoot's hiring was approved by 4 trustees who are at odds with Henyard and have repeatedly clashed with the mayor. Henyard and 2 other trustees did not attend Monday's meeting. Trustees also want Lightfoot to investigate a May 2023 trip to Vegas Henyard, 2 village trustees, and some village employees took. The trip was for economic development purposes, according to the village. Officials attended the annual International Council of Shopping Centers convention. Say what? Let me read that again. Officials attended the annual International Council of Shopping Centers convention, where municipal officials often attend to pitch their towns to retail developers. Oh, okay, all right, fine. Noting the size of the crowd, Lightfoot told the audience it's clear, quote, the people in this village want something different. They want to go in a different direction, end of quote. She said village residents deserve nothing less than a government that is fully accountable. An attorney, Lightfoot does not work for a law enforcement agency and would not have any authority to subpoena village records. She said she urged the full cooperation of the mayor, her staff, and others in the probe. Anybody who knows me knows I don't intimidate easily, Lightfoot said when asked a question by a resident about how effective her investigation might be. I will block out the noise. I will follow the facts where they lead me. Lightfoot acknowledged that she would not be welcomed with open arms by Henyard or her administration. I'm expecting this. There will be some roadblocks. I'm a very determined person. Under the terms of the hiring agreement, Lightfoot will provide regular updates to trustees, and when her billing totals $30,000, will give a full summary of the investigation to trustees. A law firm representing the village, the Delgado Law Group, sent a letter Monday to attorney Bert Oldelson, whose firm serves as legal counsel for the village board, warning that hiring Lightfoot is beyond the trustees' authority. Wow. I mean, just unbelievable. And believe me, and I'm looking for it. Nope, they don't have it here. But let me tell you something. That's a great joke. $400 California minimum wage. They're not that far away. They're not that far away at all. I tell you what. She's making $400 an hour, but to be honest, that's not bad for someone doing. Yeah, that's true. That's true. That is true. I mean, sometime I got to get into a discussion of Tiffany Henyard. I mean, oh gosh. I mean, just that woman is absolutely, and I'm not kidding about this. She has intimidated businesses to give her campaign contributions. She's hired people on that definitely have no business whatsoever being involved in municipal government. She is awful, just plain awful. You know, it is unbelievable to me that it's gotten this far. But then again, Dalton is just outside Chicago. It's Cook County. I am not surprised. Yeah, good point. Good point. You know, absolutely. I don't know, man. Absolutely amazing. So it's about 8:30 on Tuesday night. This has been Chatting on the Porch. I want to thank you guys for being here for the inaugural session. We're going to be back Thursday night, 7 o'clock, same time. Like I say, give me a little bit to work out the kinks on this show. And, you know, we'll get this thing grooved in real good. But in the meanwhile, thank you guys so much for being here and hanging out with me. You guys are just totally awesome. You truly are. And, you know, I can't thank you enough. I really can't. You guys are just amazing. Truly you are. Like I say, we will be back Thursday. And tell your friends. Like I say, this is going to be a regular thing. How regular it's going to be, I've got a feeling, like I said, I got a feeling before it's all said and done. Yes, John McGarvey, you are awesome. And you're modest about it too, daggone it. That's why we love you. Nah, don't worry about it. You're good. You know, stroll in whenever you need to. It's all good. It's all good. Yeah, we're going to be back this Thursday, 7 o'clock. And I've got a feeling the natural evolution of this channel is going to be, we're going to be streaming through the week on a more regular basis than just 2 days a week. Like I say, I'm doing this in part because at some point I have got to get some sleep. I mean, I love making videos and everything else, but if y'all know my schedule, you know, and like I say, I said this Saturday and I'll say it again, I have no problem whatsoever putting in hard work to build something really good and really cool. But at some point I gotta find a way to modify this so like mind and body don't start wearing out on me. And when my eyes reach the point that at 9 o'clock in the morning, I feel like they're about to burn out the back of my head, that's a problem, among other symptoms. Let's put it that way. But anyway, we will be back. We will be back this Thursday, 7 o'clock. Tell your friends. And let's spread the word. Thank you for all the super chats tonight. Love you guys. And you have a fantastic evening. And remember the words of that great American philosopher, Tom T. Hall, when he said, "It's faster horses, younger lovers, older whiskey, and more money." We'll see you guys later.